All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another graduate program highlight on Facebook Live. My name is Tom. I will be our host for tonight. We will be highlighting our brand new Masters of Social Work program, which we are just getting off the ground here beginning this fall semester. So we are really excited for that. I see the weather is decent. It's pretty rainy here in Danville and in Bloomsburg. So this is a great time to tune in to a Facebook Live event, learn about a potential grad program. I am joined here by Dr. Dunlap and Professor Carson. If you guys wouldn't mind introducing themselves, they are from the new MSW program.
Andy, you go first.
Hi, I'm Andy Dunlap. I'm the incoming program director of the MSW program. We're working really hard to get the program up and running and established. I tend to teach practice classes. I'm a clinical social worker by training, so a lot of my work is about helping students to empathize across difference.
And how long have you been at BU, Andy?
Yeah, this is my second year, actually. I've been teaching in social work education for a long time, but this is only my second year here at Bloomsburg.
Nice. All right, great. Well, thank you, Andy. And Tammy?
I am Tammy Carson. I am currently the BSW field liaison. I will be the MSW field director as we get the program off the ground. And I have been working in field education for 17 years. And this is actually my second go round at Bloomsburg. I was at Bloom for a couple of years and then went to one of our sister schools for a year. And then I came back to Bloomsburg the same time that Andy started there. So we've both been there since fall of 2019.
Circle back. Great.
Yeah.
Well, we're happy to have both of you. So the way that the program is going to run tonight is we have a presentation from Andy and Tammy where we're going to highlight a lot of the more important parts of the new grad program. And please feel free to ask any questions throughout the course of the event. We'd be happy to have it, field any questions that you have at this point. I know this is brand new, so there's probably a lot of things going through your mind right now. This is a great time to get those questions answered. Please feel free to type them in on the Facebook post, and I will get those questions to Andy and Tammy so they can be answered by the specialist here. But without any further ado here, let me just bring up Andy's presentation. Go right ahead.
Okay, yeah, so you can just go ahead on to the first slide there, or next slide there. So one of the questions we get asked quite a lot is, well, it's kind of like why an MSW, but also what is social work all about? We're a profession that's often misunderstood, and I think part of that is because there are a lot of different choices that social workers get to make when we decide what kind of path we want to take our career along. One of the hallmarks of social work education, certainly, but social work practices, is that we're trained to intervene not just with individuals, but also with groups, small groups, families, communities, organizations, and even at the policy and the lawmaking level. And we have a broad, the specific skills that we learn have a broad application, and they can be applied in different places. So one reason social work is very interesting and exciting to people is that it gives a lot of flexibility in terms of professional choices. It's also a field that is continuing to grow. And we have been continuing to grow for some time now. There's a lot of demand in various specialty areas of social work practice. One is gerontology, social work practice with older adults. That is a growing area and will continue to grow. There is also now a renewed interest in strengthening the social net that our society has, the obligations we have for each other for helping folks to make it through. And also mental health needs are really spiking right now as kind of a secondary impact of the global pandemic that's been going on. So there's, unfortunately, there is an expanding need for social work practice, and specifically in central Pennsylvania, there's a lack of training opportunities for master's level social work. So we're really hoping to fill that gap that's missing in social work education. Many social workers get into social work because they want to be a therapist. I mean, that's just, put it out there. That's a lot of people get into the field for that reason. A lot of people also get into the field of social work because they really can see that there needs to be social change going on in the world around them, and they want to learn the tools to be able to do that. So the thing that gets me very excited about social work practice is I can, one day be sitting in an office doing therapy with a client, and then the next day be working on advocating for maybe a policy that will help to improve the lives of everybody in Pennsylvania. So our program specifically is an advanced generalist program, which means a very specific set of skills that can be applied in any different settings is exactly what we will be teaching students, with lots of opportunities for electives so that students can pull in little areas of specialty that they may be wanting to focus on. I'm in the process of developing now a elective on narrative therapy, which is a very specific and very interesting way of helping people in a one-on-one setting. And the last thing I'll say about why an MSW, why this MSW program, we are specifically focused on developing leaders. And leadership takes many forms, and you already have heard me talk about social work practice at different levels several times already. We need leaders who are ready to work towards social change, to direct agencies, to supervise new social workers. And our program is really committed to infusing leadership principles throughout the curriculum.
So Andy, what's the advantage to doing a master's degree in social work versus just doing the BSW or just a degree in psych or sociology? Like what's the added advantage to going on getting the advanced degree?
Yeah, well, the short answer is that a master's level training qualifies you for more advanced work, which means higher salary, higher responsibilities, more opportunities in terms of job development and job growth. So that's the sort of big picture take home. Anyone who's interested in the mental health aspect of social work, a lot of social workers work in mental health, will definitely want to go on to get a master's degree, because that's the qualification that you need in terms of degree. But also agencies like the VA or many like schools, public schools who have social workers working in them are really looking for people with master's degree. Hospital social work is typically a master's degree kind of a situation. So it's an advanced, just advanced training that qualifies you for so much more.
Sure, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, so on the next slide, I think just a quick overview of some of the coursework. Often people wonder, what would it be like to be in an MSW program? Those of you who have BSWs, it will look very familiar. A lot of the coursework takes the same structure, but then bumps it up a notch in terms of depth and training and experience. So we do load our students up with quite a bit of theory that's really focused on human development and how do people function in the social environment. That's one of the hallmarks of social work practice. We're very interested in how the environment impacts the individual. And then we also load our students up with lots of specific skills at the individual, group, and community level. We do have research classes that help students to understand the value of research and how that informs our practice, and then how we also as social workers contribute to the research base that's out there. Policy, doing policy work is also a very important part of social work practice as well. And the most important piece of social work education, in fact, it's the sort of the cornerstone of social work education, if you will, is the internship, or what we're calling the integrated field seminar. So this is the experience that students have while they're learning in the classroom, and then they're also engaging in a real world hands-on experience that Tammy is going to talk all about. I'll pass it off to you, Tammy.
Next slide, please.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay. So as Andy just mentioned, the signature pedagogy of any social work program, whether it's BSW or MSW, and at any social work program across the country, it is the signature pedagogy as described by our accrediting body. Any person who walks out of a master's of social work program is going to have at least 900 total hours of field experience, whether that came from an undergraduate social work program and an MSW program, or our full MSW program, minimum of 900 hours. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it is broken out over either 2 or 4 semesters. So it is broken down a little bit, and we're looking at between 14 and 18 hours per week in your field agency, depending on where that would be. Every student is going to have supervision with somebody who has an MSW already and at least 2 years of postgraduate experience. So the supervision that you're going to be receiving through your field experience is going to be with somebody who has been in the field. So that's a really important piece, because other professions are great and we want you to be experiencing learning with other professions as well, but that supervision with the MSW is really important. One thing I think that's really helpful for some of our students is that we do allow students to do an employment-based field experience. There are some parameters that we have around that process, but it is something that we can explore with you if that would be helpful. I know a lot of students who are in an MSW program are working at least part-time, sometimes full-time. Sometimes you've got a family at home, you have other obligations. So being able to do your internship within your place of employment can be really helpful, particularly if you plan to stay employed in that agency or organization. So if that's something that would be of interest to you or that would be helpful to you, make sure that you talk to us as you prepare to get into the field experience.
And actually, I'm sorry, Tammy, real
Yeah.
quick, we had a question from the audience, a really good question, and this might more or less touch on, Andy, what you had covered in the previous slide, but are LCSW able to bill for themselves and run independent practices, or do they have to practice under a doctoral level provider?
Good, Tammy.
I can answer that.
Yeah.
So whoever's asking the question is clearly interested in clinical social work and doing therapy and having an LCSW. Yes, I actually have several friends who are LCSWs who are in private practice for themselves, doing all of their own billing work. I know, Andy, you had done some of that as well. So yep. Yes, you can, in the state of Pennsylvania, do that as an LCSW.
And just for everyone else, or really more or less for my own edification here, LCSW stands for?
Licensed Clinical Social Worker.
Gotcha. I mean, I knew what that was. I was making sure you knew what that was.
My dogs are barking, but
no, that's okay.
So there's actually 2 kinds of licensure at the master's level in Pennsylvania. No, at the master's level.
Yeah.
We have the licensed social worker, which is what I have. And then we have the LCSW, which adds that clinical piece. And that's what Andy has. In the last 2 years, I believe, the NASW, National Association of Social Workers in Pennsylvania, actually finally got policy pushed through. There is an optional BSW license as well. So yeah. But I think that was a great question, and it is relevant to field experience too, because if that is something that you are interested in getting your LCSW and then going on to do private practice or practice in an agency where you are going to be billing, that's something that we can explore as we're looking at your agency for your field experience too. So you would want to be in an agency that would be providing similar services. Did that answer that? Are we good? Yeah,
we're good. Yep. And great question. Thank you, Nathan.
Just to add one other piece to that too, there is LSW with a master's degree, and then the LCSW is after about 2 years of supervised apprenticeship, basically under an LCSW. So just to throw that piece in there.
Great, thank you.
So, and then just to kind of highlight a few opportunities, a few agencies that are in the area that we are currently working with that I know are chomping at the bit for us to get our MSW program started, because they're really interested in having our students. We work with Geisinger with the whole medical system already, both case management and behavioral health. So there would be a lot of opportunities there. Danville State Hospital has actually worked with many of our bachelor students, but are also very interested in having our master's level students. The United Way of Columbia and Montour County, and then connections that they have with other organizations. The entire Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, we've had bachelor students there, but they are very open to MSW students. And then we have multiple programs within the university itself that are very excited to host MSW students. So those are just a few.
Tammy, could you just say a word about like traditional two-year students needing two different internships?
Yeah, so if a student is coming in without a BSW and they are doing the full program, not the advanced standing program, the expectation is that the foundation or the first internship is going to be in a different organization, or at least in a different department than the second internship. We want them to have new learning. We want them to have the opportunity to expand on the skills that they got at the foundation level. That doesn't mean necessarily if you're in an agency, let's just say Meraki or Diacon, you do your first internship with that organization, you could still potentially be within that same organization for your second one, but we would want you to be in a completely different department and different program. So the two should be different. Thank you for asking that, Andy. Was I taking this slide too?
Yeah, we've already kind of talked about a lot of this, but yeah, go ahead.
So we talked a lot about mental health. I do want to mention child welfare, since you do have that listed on there. We do have a lot of folks that do child welfare as an undergrad student, and we are hopeful, and I know that a lot of our local county agencies are very excited about our MSW program. So that is something that we are working to establish. We talked about criminal justice already in hospitals, and Andy also mentioned school. I do want to just mention the community development piece. I already mentioned the United Way as one of our options. We have been doing more with environmental social work and other community building options. So if macro and policy work is something that you're interested in, this is also a really great degree program to pursue. And when Andy was talking about us being kind of an advanced generalist program, you were talking, Andy, about some of the electives that you're working on. I also want to point out that field, particularly at the advanced level or the specialization year, is really another place for you to really hone in on your skills in a particular career area of interest. So it really is very broad, and you can take it in really any direction.
Well, and field is really often that final internship in the MSW is really often kind of a launching pad for that trajectory in your career. Yeah,
absolutely.
So what are like what might someone be doing? So like they can be somewhat broad. So if you're working in hospital social work, what does your caseload of work look like? Like what might a day look like? And I know no 2 days are the same, but like what are some common threads you might see if you're a medical social worker?
Again, it varies. Like you could be doing case management with on a med surg floor. You could be working in the NICU with families who have really sick babies. You could be running groups for people who are preparing to have kidney transplant. You could be working on, the kids' cancer floor. Like it's so broad. When you say hospital social work, that's actually a question I always ask students who come in and say they want to do medical social work. I say, tell me what that means to you. Sure. Because students come in with very different ideas on what that looks like.
Right. What about something like school social work?
Again, in Pennsylvania, that's a whole other conversation. Okay. But in Pennsylvania, there is no such thing as like an actual school social worker. We are one of the only states that doesn't have a specific designation for what that means. It could be case management. It could be working with kids in an emotional support classroom. It could be doing behavioral health work. It could be doing all of those things. It could be an adjunct to the guidance office. So again, school social work looks very different.
Okay. Andy, I'm sorry, Andy, I cut you off there.
Well, I was just to build on what Tammy was saying. I had a student. I was being cheeky once, and I asked a class, "Where do you find social workers?" And I had a student sitting in the back of the class who said, "Anywhere you find people." And he really hit it on the. He really hit the nail on the head. You know, if you think about, like, if you're in a hospital, just think for a second, like, what are all the needs that you might have while you're there? The social worker, probably nurses. I mean, not like beyond the actual healthcare interventions, the other needs that you might have. Right. Social workers are often the ones that are going to be kind of filling in the gaps, connecting with resources, helping you with discharge planning, providing support to you and your family, shuffling information around because it's hard to get, all that sort of stuff.
And so the other thing that I've heard you mention a couple of times, that was case management. What is case management?
Case management is generally the idea that there are resources in the community, and there's a central person who is embedded, who is connected with everything that's going on in the community, so that when a client comes to them with a need, they can then direct them to that resource. And there are different case management models. Some of them are more collaborative, some of them are more, here's a referral kind of thing. But it's generally the idea that there's a hub person who is centrally, or not centrally, but vitally connected with the community and can make those connections for people.
Excellent. That's good to know. Okay, great. Thank you.
So yeah, next slide, please. Yeah. We've talked about some of this already, and I pulled a figure from, it's actually from a commercial source, but I think it's a pretty good one. For an average salary for social workers. This is not a starting salary. There's also a lot of variation, like, you know, working in mental health versus working in a hospital versus working in child welfare. There's going to be quite a bit of variation for different salaries. So if folks are, I was talking with a prospective student the other day who was kind of doing the math and trying to figure out, should I do this program? What's the salary bump going to be like for me? Do a little research. There's plenty of information out there that can help you. You want to be in hospital social work. You can find the average salary in Pennsylvania for hospital social workers and get an idea of what that's going to look like.
And so, Andy, the other, and actually we had another good question from the audience that I'll relay here in just a second. The other part of this, and I know this seems like something right out of the future, is job automation seems to be something that's a topic that comes up in a lot of these job outlook discussions. Man, it'd be really difficult for me to see a career like this being outsourced or automated, or, I mean, I can't see a situation playing out where social workers or people who work with mental health are only going to be in higher demand than what they are right now as a lot of these things come to light.
Yeah, and in fact, social work really has its roots in the Industrial Revolution as a reaction to it.
Oh.
And so I see the more disconnected we become, the greater the need for social workers.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, so we had two good questions from Kelsey here. The first question is, how will the advanced standing program look for students who have their BSW, and how many credits and clinical hours will there need to be per semester?
Per semester? Well, so the advanced standing program is 36 credits as opposed to 60 credits, which is the regular 2-year program. And we are aiming for about 12 credits per semester, although there are students are going to need to pick up, there are going to be some summer classes. For the first cohort, there's going to be some winter classes. So it's going to be a little more, it's not going to be necessarily 12, 12, 12, 12, 12 exactly across. And we are very conscious of not overloading master's level students with fieldwork and classwork at the same time, because we're really expecting students to dig into their academic work as well as to their application and their practicum as well too. Okay. Not sure that answered the question, maybe.
Yeah, so no, I think that hit. And Kelsey, if you want to follow up, please, you can put it in the post, because I'm sure you're not the only person wondering. That's a great question. She had another follow-up question. If I do my internship for my BSW at Geisinger, would I be able to do a medical internship for my MSW?
Tammy?
Yeah, I would say so. I would need to have more information on what the first internship looked like, though. Again, same response as before. We want the specialization year, whether you're in the 36 credit or the 60 credit program, we want that specialization year to be at a specialization year level. So it would have to be more in depth, more advanced, and new experiences.
So Tammy, conceivably, it could be for the same organization.
Sure.
But you wouldn't be doing the same, like the job expectations would need to be different than what it was with the previous. Okay.
Correct.
Really, the principle we're thinking about is there needs to be new learning when somebody is starting a practicum. So if they've been working in this agency for 5 years, you need to be doing something different in the agency at least.
Sure. Yep, that makes perfect sense. Great. Okay, thank you. All right.
Actually, just to throw out there too, one of the big misconceptions about, you can go on to the next slide, that's good, Tom. One of the big misconceptions about this program or social work or MSW programs in general is that you have to have a BSW in order to get into it. No. In fact, a BSW really is the equivalent of the foundational year or the first year of the MSW program. That's how we think about it. That's how our accrediting body has structured it. So if you're new to social work and you want to start a master's degree, it's going to be a 2-year program for you. If you've been studying social work at the undergraduate degree and you did well in your classes, you're going to be able to move into advanced standing and basically skip over the first year of the regular program.
And Andy, what are some of the undergrad degree programs that might provide good preparation for an MSW?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Yeah, anyone with a liberal arts background who is trained in critical thinking, who has a big heart, who wants to change the world, who wants to help people, you should definitely be in our program for sure. Also, of course, folks, soc, psych, folks who had thought about going into the medical profession, but then decided that's maybe not quite for me. We get a lot of folks from teaching actually as well, too, teacher education programs who decide, yeah, I want to work with kids, but actually this teaching thing is not exactly where I want to be. So anybody with an undergraduate degree, we have requirements. You have to, basic soc, psych, human biology, U.S. government, but we can work with you on those things.
And Andy, so a lot of times I hear students say, at the undergrad level, I want to be a counselor, I want to, be a therapist or something. Well, and there are grad degrees with those titles, right? But that's a career field where you could probably have different types of degrees, but still have the same job. Would someone with an MSW be able to go into a career as a social, or yes, obviously a social worker, but as a therapist or as a counselor or something like that?
Yeah, in Pennsylvania, and it's similar in other states, there are several different master's level degrees that lead basically to the same level of licensure for delivering mental health care. And social work is one of those. Okay. So yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
The only thing I would add related to this slide is that we're very excited and we're almost ready to make some announcements about this. We're also bringing on some new expert faculty to contribute to this MSW program. So we have great faculty already. We've got lots of expertise, actually great diversity of expertise in our social work faculty. And we're all going to be contributing not only to the BSW program, but also to the MSW program. So it's very exciting.
And Andy, what are some of the areas of expertise that are covered by the faculty, by yourself or Tammy or anyone else in the faculty?
Yeah, so Dr. James comes from a background of substance abuse treatment and helping people who are struggling with those kinds of issues. I come from mental health background, but also a lot of my work is with LGBTQ plus folks, and also cross-cultural education. And Dr. Erdley is very invested in, this is where we get our leadership bump from, if you will, she's very invested in leadership and helping students to take on that mantle. She tends to teach our policy class as well. So she's got that, we call the macro, the big picture sort of lens on the world. And Dr. Yoon is our expert in research and applied research. How do you not just like research for research sake, but how do you use research to inform your practice? And Tammy, I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I will add that Dr. Erdley also has a pretty extensive background in medical social work. She actually was a social. She was in the dialysis unit for many years at Geisinger. So she brings that background as well. I also was a therapist for a while. So my background is in clinical social work. But I also have a master's in public administration. So I also did macro work. I was a program director. I primarily worked with teenagers, but I also developed new programs for 2 different organizations. And then, as I said, I've been in higher ed for 17 years. So field is really my area of expertise at this point, but I've done a little bit of everything and all mixed up.
And so actually we have 2 more questions from the audience. Another great question from Kelsey. When does the application open for those applying for the summer, fall of 2022?
You can apply now. Yeah.
Yep. So, all right. So summer 21. So for the following year in advance, Kelsey, you would be able to submit your application.
You just need to specify which cohorts you would want to be joining. Now, the first cohorts are starting in August, this August, in a few months. The second cohorts are starting in May of next year. So that's a bit of a shift. So, and then from then on, our cohorts will be beginning in May.
Okay. And a great question from Julie. Will there be any online classes?
Yeah, so great question. We are creating a face-to-face, in-person curriculum. So there's not an online option per se. There will be some here and there. There will be some classes, for instance, that will meet virtually. There will be online assignments, that sort of stuff. But we are really creating more of a traditional in-person program. That's important because for social work, especially for practice classes, you really need to be in the room with the people that you're training with in order to get the depth of the experience that we want you to learn. Now, on down the line, we do have plans to open satellite campuses at other schools in the region. And for those programs specifically, there will be a mix of online classes and face-to-face classes. But the Bloomsburg-based program, which is starting now, is going to be all in person.
And will there be any night or weekend classes?
Another great question. Yeah, we are trying our best to really accommodate students who are working and have families and other obligations. So our classes are like for the fall, for instance, the regular admission students for the foundation year, they're going to be on campus Monday and Wednesday only from 3 p.m. until 9:30 p.m. We're going to squeeze 4 classes into those 2 days. And then the advanced standing students are going to be on campus roughly the same time frame, Tuesday, Thursday. So students who are starting the program can expect to be in late afternoon and evening classes 2 days a week.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Andy.
Sure. I guess you want to talk about go on to the next slide. We can talk about the application requirements. Yeah. So just to say very quickly that we have a lot of information on, well, we don't have a lot of information on our webpage yet. We're building the program. But we do have one piece of information that we do have is what you need in order to apply. If you're considering applying, you should definitely check it out. The personal statement that you will write, we take very seriously when we evaluate it. And we have very specific prompts for that essay, if you will. So please, please, please make sure you check out our webpage, the master's program, MSW program webpage. On the right-hand side of the page, you can click on the links that will take you to the application materials and check that out. You will need your transcripts, of course. You will need a resume, 3 letters of recommendation from specific people. That's also detailed on the web page. And then I'm glad, Tom, to see that we have the waiver code here for the application fee. If you want to apply, but you're not quite sure, you don't want to put the money down, you can use this grad 2021 to skip the fee for applying to the program.
And I'm putting the link to the website on Facebook here.
Thank you. Yeah,
Can
great.
I add one thing on there that isn't mentioned? For anybody who is applying for advanced standing, meaning that you already have that undergraduate degree in social work, you will also need to share, and for anybody that's listening to this, you'll know what I'm talking about. You will need to also share your final field evaluation from your undergraduate BSW program.
Yeah, thanks, Tammy. Yep.
And can all these things be submitted electronically?
Yep.
Okay.
Through the graduate admissions portal. Yep.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
So that's us. That's the spiel.
Let me see here. All right, well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And just a last couple moment here to see if there are any questions. I know we had a lot of outstanding participation from the group. I hope this has piqued your interest. There's no question that this is a career field that is certainly in demand. And you hear this with a lot of professions where you're making a difference, and that is true. But this is a field where you are on the front lines of making a difference, is probably how I would describe it. And there's only so many fields that are like that. So seems to be one of those fields where it's a calling. But we have a program that can help you make that your calling a career. We do have a couple actually final questions here. For those of us who will not be doing our field placements for the BSW until next spring, how does that affect the application? Very good question from Kelsey.
You can upload all the rest of your information, and then that last piece gets uploaded at the end. We would still have the opportunity to review the rest of your application materials in the interim, and then once you're finished, because you wouldn't be able to upload your final transcript until then either.
Right, and that's that's a good point. That this is actually, shockingly enough, one of the questions I can actually help with, being in admissions here. So, there's kind of a misconception where you have to submit all of your application materials at the same time. And the reality is, what you probably should do, just to make it a little bit easier on yourself, is the first thing you start with is the application, and then you can start to submit all the required documentations after you have submitted the app. But we have, expensive software programs that we use to maintain all these documents. So that way, as you get them, send them to us and we'll take them off of your hands. And then once your application is complete, Andy and Tammy will go through and make a decision. But they'll get a notification when, hey, student XYZ has submitted all 4 application components. Their application is ready for review. So there's no chance of that being missed. So you can send us the materials as they are readily available to you. And just out of curiosity, how long is it normally to get an application decision made? So like, let's say a student had submitted all the required documentation. How long could they expect until they, receive a decision?
Once it gets to us, and I think it can take a little while to filter through the system to get to us. Once it gets to us, we can have that turned around. Usually, I would say 2 weeks at the
2 weeks. Okay. Great. Let me just see if there's any final questions here. I think that's it. Yes. So the application is live for this year and for next year. We look forward to hearing from everybody in the future. And if you have any questions, Andy, Tammy, and probably myself to a lesser extent, there's probably not a whole heck of a lot that I can help you with. But I, probably the best thing I can do is give you Andy's email or Tammy's email, which I'd be happy to do. We work for you and we're happy to do so. So if you have any further questions about the program, or this has piqued your interest and you'd like to know more, please reach out to us. When we're done here, I'll put all of our contact information on the Facebook post. And thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate your time, and we hope you have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting us.